Hey guys, it's Amanda and Barron with Kicking Cancer Cares on KSLM Radio 104.3 FM and 1220 AM. Our sponsor for this second half is Marianne McNally. She is a residential real estate specialist with Next Home Realty Connection. So if you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or just really not sure where to start, give her a call at 503-409-4389, and please keep her in your prayers as well. She's going through her own battle with breast cancer.
Yep, and I'm going to get us an update here soon on how she's doing.
Okay.
We've been having just a wonderful conversation with what has become a really good friend. And,
Yes.
and if you missed the first half, you can hear the version of how we met and
Yep.
me put my big boy pants on to go talk to Victoria. But we also mentioned her introducing me to Lisa Walker and me getting involved with Cancer Awareness Weekend. I wanted to read you just real quick Lisa's story.
Okay.
It was September the 12th, 2000, so 24 years ago almost, that she received a call from my surgeon informing me that the biopsy was malignant. Our young son, Mickey, who is now my boss, was not yet 3 years old. So Mickey was born the year they built the stadium.
Yeah.
Right? He walked over to me, placed his hand on my knee, and said, "Mommy, it's going to be okay."
Okay.
It's going to be okay. Yes, he said it the way it's spelled. You could say he was prophesying my healing.
Mm-hmm.
I remember vividly crying the next day, "God, forgive me for being fearful." It was as if I was transformed to a new life. For a while, I wanted to go back to September the 11th, which would have been the day before. That is until 2001. My treatment was a strong and aggressive approach, making sure that the cancer would be destroyed. Dr. Bud Pierce became a hero, number 3 in my life. Number 1, my husband. Number 2, my son. Number 3, Dr. Pierce. Mm-hmm. And then from that experience is what motivated her 2 years later to create Cancer Awareness Weekend.
Yeah.
Which is now 22 years old. But this is a copy of our newsletter. Mm-hmm. We do a special one in the summer. The newest one will be coming out soon. The one we do in the summer is a survivor issue.
Okay.
All the stories are first person. The other newsletters could be first person. They could you could tell somebody's story.
Yeah.
These are always first person. The reason I love this one is every story in here was from a lady. Mm-hmm. So the title for this was Women of Valor.
Okay.
And the second story on that is...
Is it Victoria's?
Is Victoria.
It is.
So Victoria, just real quick for the listeners, I won't read it. Share your story for your cancer.
So, summer of 2016, we were on vacation, and I noticed a really odd, really slight stomach issue, upper digestive system. It wasn't painful, it was just odd. The week went through by eating all kinds of things you shouldn't be eating every day. Mm-hmm. Lots of ice cream, lots of cookies. I mean, just stuff, just junk. We're on vacation.
Sugar, yeah.
Exactly. We were bike riding every day. Anyway, so... went to the doctor, made a doctor's appointment. What was ironic is the doctor's appointment that was available was that following Monday morning, and the next appointment she had available was a month out. This was my general practitioner, and I thought, is that a sign? Well, why not just schedule the appointment? Mm-hmm. Went in, she thought it was probably gallbladder or something else, did some testing. Initial test came back, it's not gallbladder, it's something else. It looks like it might be in your liver, and I'm thinking, uh-oh, what does that mean?
Right.
Diagnosed then, after about 2 weeks of testing, with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer, left breast spread to liver and bones.
Yeah.
Pretty dire diagnosis.
Terrifying.
And most of our listeners have been with us for a while, but for the ones that are just tuning in, stage refers to risk. So stage 4 is the highest risk. Mm-hmm. Metastatic means it left its place of origin, so it started in your breast, but then it went to your bones
and
liver. Liver is not a good place for the cancer to go, nor is the bones. So it was definitely a catastrophic diagnosis.
Yeah.
It was, and what's interesting is I knew stage 4 was not good. I've dealt with cancer since I was 5 with family members and such, so I knew that wasn't good. But the metastatic part, I kind of knew what it was, but not really. And so when we were talking with the oncologist, I kept referencing liver cancer, and he had to correct me and finally got a little bit short with me. Not short, but he was very definitive. It's not liver cancer, it's breast cancer that has spread to the liver. Finally, it resonated with me. I didn't realize that could happen because I really never studied all of that.
Right.
So we decided I've done no radiation, no surgery. If what they found is if they remove the primary source of the cancer, it causes the secondary areas to just rapidly grow.
Okay.
And so they chose to do chemotherapy first. I did that for 8 months. Started out with Taxol for the first 4 months, then they added a second drug, Gemzar. Did the first PET scan June of 2017, went to the doctor. They said, your PET scan shows no active hot spots. And I thought, well, that sounds good, but I don't know what that means.
Right.
I said, okay, that sounds good. She kept talking, and all of a sudden I said, excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt you, and I know it sounds good, but I need to get across the hall to do my chemo. And she said, oh, we're not doing chemo today. And my heart just thunk. I thought, oh my God, why? Am I that far gone?
Right.
That was going through my mind.
Because you needed it to survive.
I did.
Basically.
That was at that point
Your
in time.
lifeline.
Exactly. Was
Yeah.
my lifeline. It was being monitored weekly for 10 months. She said, no, what I'm trying to tell you is there's no active hot spots, which means the cancer it's just not active right now. And I said, okay, I'm trying to understand what she's saying. I kind of did, but I didn't. And she said, we're taking you off of the regular intravenous chemo and transitioning you to a daily hormone blocker, which is what started my breast cancer, called Arimidex. I said, okay. And she said, then we'll have you come back in 3 months. We'll do another PET scan and see how you're doing. And I said to her, I said, who's monitoring me for the next 3 months? You guys have been monitoring me weekly. You can't just release me.
Yeah.
And she laughed and she said, I know how you feel. We're always here for you, but we don't need to see you for 3 months. You're going to be okay. Well, now what that meant, she didn't know. They didn't know. Fast forward to this January, had my 17th or 18th clear PET scan. I've had 18 clear PET scans.
Congratulations.
Clear. All
That's
the lesions,
huge.
it is. All the lesions in my bones from head to toe have healed. I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah.
I really never asked where in my bones. I did this January. She said, everywhere. It was everywhere, Victoria. I said, oh. 8 months or 8 years later, I'm finally realizing really how catastrophic that diagnosis was. She pulled up my chart. Every PET scan shows a word that now I love and embrace, which is unremarkable. I am an unremarkable individual, and I'm intending to stay there. She said, we don't get to see this.
Yeah.
There was another statement you told me years ago that when you didn't understand why you weren't going across the hall, right? Didn't they tell you that they could count on one hand
Yes.
the number of people that had done what you did?
Yes, they did. In fact, the doctor put her hand out and she said, Victoria, we have this many people with your diagnosis that are where you are right now. That was only 10 months after my diagnosis.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 8 years later, she just sat back. She said, we don't get to see this. And you think if you deal with oncologists and doctors and people that are going through the cancer fight, you realize the devastation it is. And then I sat back and I thought, wow, think of the world that they live in, the medical community.
Oh, yeah.
They see death every single day. They hear a diagnosis and they immediately, I don't know this, but I do. When I hear certain diagnosis, I think, that's a death sentence.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be. So right now I'm sharing, listen to your body, dig until they figure out what it is, and then go into the fight of your life, like that donkey, and make yourself that new statistic. Look at anything you can possibly find that will be helpful.
Yeah.
And I'm here to try and provide hope for everybody.
Absolutely.
Well, there's a couple people that have been guests. Most recently, we actually had the pleasure of talking to Derek Zabrowski, and he's with the OHSU Night Cancer Institute. So he is their community outreach person. He goes all over the state with this van and talking about what the Knight Institute is doing. Truly remarkable that Phil Knight, who started Nike, some people didn't know that, but as his company grew and he began to become wealthier, he said, what can I do with this money? And it would be nice to realize I have so much money, I don't know what to do with it. But
right.
That's what he has. So he took $100 million to start the Nye Institute. And once they got the infrastructure in place, he came back and he says, I will donate another $500 million if you will do a fundraising campaign to match it, which they did. Which now that gave them $1 billion, right? And what they're doing is their mission is to eliminate cancer as we know it.
All
Yes.
together.
And they're just finding all these different things that can help you get ahead of cancer, right? And a couple keys, you said it, we've had other guests that got it. You know your body really well.
Yeah.
Remember, Beth called in from Kentucky, the 31-year-old girl that got, and she had this scar that wasn't healing. We had a Terry who called in from Denver, Colorado, that had a callus on the bottom of his foot that wasn't healing. You know your body. Listen to your body. And Beth said it really well. If you don't like the answer the doctor gives you, get another opinion.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Listen to your instincts as well.
And there's people that are scared to go to the doctor. My husband, being one of them, cancer runs. He's had a lot of death of cancer in his family, and so he's terrified of it. So anytime something's wrong, he's like, I don't want to go to the doctor because I don't want to hear cancer. And it's like, you got to go to the doctor though, because if that is a word you hear, you have to get on top of it instead of just letting it go. So. And I know men are typically more stubborn when it comes to going to the hospital, but just go.
Well,
Get checked.
And Terry said that when he called in. You know, Terry's like, it may be a society or I don't know what it is, but men are strong. They don't have to admit it, but go get checked.
Yeah.
Just go get checked, right? It's not not the end of the world.
Well, I'm not one that runs to the doctor either. I'm really not. I mean, you do the annual check-ins and all of that, but I love the integrative medicine to include acupuncture, massage therapy, mindfulness, all of that. I love how that works all together in harmony. It can be a symphony, if you will, of health remedies. That being said, there's a lot of bad stories about doctors out there, and it's really not fair because all doctors are not bad, and all doctors only have so many hours in the day to read and research.
Right.
That's why it's so important to be your own advocate. And if your mind, when you're diagnosed with cancer, you go into a fight and you focus, you realize how quickly you only have so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
And if you can engage people around you to help with, just give you insight, maybe articles, connections. I too, my dad died I was 5, he was 42 of Hodgkin's cancer.
Yeah.
Mom at 78 with esophageal, my sister of ovarian at 56. So I'm really familiar with cancer.
Yeah.
It's ugly. I hate it. It's just stupid.
It is. Amen.
Well, so she said something earlier that I want to circle back to. You were at a point where you've been monitored weekly, and then they said they're going to monitor you every 3 months. There is an amazing organization in Tigard. We've had their co-founder on twice, Sharon from Breast Friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've changed their motto partly because of they were alienated some of their potential funders. But when Sharon and Becky started it, what they realized is here's Victoria, and she's in the fight, so she needs monitored every week. But now you're good, now you're okay, and so we need to move on to another woman. But you're never okay.
No.
Right? So they started Breast Friends as a support group, a big support group for women. So their motto used to be, when medicine isn't enough.
Okay.
Now, they are working with a lot of different oncology groups in Portland, and that became a little alienating. So they've changed their motto, but really that's what it is. You know, at this point, medicine is not necessary. You just need checked up on periodically. But what kind of support can you provide for women? We read the statistic earlier. It's still the #1 new cases.
Right.
You know, we're not slowing down breast cancer.
Yeah.
So what kind of support can we provide? And that, you know, Victoria mentioned the fact that once a week, you're like, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
And that's why these support groups are so critical.
Yeah.
That
Absolutely.
the fear doesn't go away.
No, it doesn't go away. And even though I'm 8 years out, people say you're in remission. No, I'm not in remission. I live with a chronic disease.
Yes.
I live with metastatic cancer that could reignite at any moment.
Yeah.
I don't live in that fear every day because in my mind, again, visualize, I'm not going back there. Mm-hmm. That donkey keeps me going forward with a fight.
Well, and you said something that I've had the pleasure of getting to know Dr. Pierce, and Bud Pierce is really is an amazing gentleman, and he made a comment to me not that long ago. One of his goals, one of his hopes, is that we'll get to a point where cancer is not a death sentence; it's a chronic disease, and there's a difference, right? And we're making headway with this chronic disease. Yeah. In Victoria's case, it could have been a death sentence. Mm-hmm. Now it's a chronic disease, but it hasn't gone away.
Yeah,
it's still there.
Nope. But had I not paid attention to that, because mine would never have been found in a mammogram. I'd had clear mammograms. The one they did at that point was clear. They never would have found it that way. So it's really critical that you pay attention.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a reason that the first time Brenda came up to visit, and I had a chance to introduce Brenda and Victoria, they connected really quickly because Brenda's wouldn't have been detected on a mammogram either.
Right.
The thermography machine was critical for her to detect it. There's a lot of... Brenda's diagnosis wasn't as extreme as Victoria's, but those two ladies have connected pretty heavily.
Yes, we have. She's just a dear lady and friend of mine.
Well, go ahead.
I think that the support groups, I wanted to touch on that. Even if cancer isn't currently in your body, I think it is important to be there, not just for yourself and to hold yourself accountable to keep moving and eating right and just being surrounded by people that are going through the same thing, but also helping others that come into that journey that are new and showing them that there is hope and showing them different ways that they can approach things. I know that with what Lucy's going through, I'm in a support group for her disease. And I stayed in it for 2.5 years, even after she started walking again. And I helped a lot of people, and now I'm back in that same boat, and those people are helping me again. And so just having support in anything that you're going through, whether you're still in it or not, you're in it.
Yep.
Amanda, you are so right on. I attend a support group through Salem Hospital twice a month. I have for 7.5 years now. And first I kind of questioned, why am I coming into this? Because those women that are in that group often have catastrophic situations. They're dealing with new clinical trials, and one's working, one doesn't work, it stops working. And here I am, just stable. Mm-hmm. And they tell me you provide us hope.
Yeah.
But they provide me hope. What I gain from them is so amazing. Mm-hmm. Just talk about inspiration.
Yeah.
And it is important. It's also important to share that with your spouses, families, members, coworkers, if they want to listen and such, because they're your support as well.
Yeah.
And it really helps you not be alone on an island, because you feel that way often.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, there was a question I asked Victoria a few days ago, and I thought this would be kind of a nice way to wind down our last half segment. Victoria, you have literally watched this from nothing. I mean, it was nothing. I had some extra shirts. I helped Brenda out. I took one to give it to her. It was about 2 months after that first encounter with Victoria that somebody said, you're onto an idea. You're going to have to be a 501c3. So the end of 2018 was literally all of this stuff to make that happen, which was a lot of work. But then we launched in 2019. And had to get the ball moving, had to get some momentum going. Victoria was helpful in getting us through that. We found a way to survive the pandemic, which was a blessing in itself. Mm-hmm. But as you look back over the last 6 years of our friendship, what do you see, and what does Kickin'Cancer mean to you?
You asked, we talked about this.
Yeah.
And a lot of things, but wrapping up in one word is hope. Mm-hmm. For everyone. It started out as this whimsical hot pink t-shirt with this great donkey that's really angry, which is very light and kind of happy, if you will. Cancer's not happy.
Right.
People aren't happy when you're diagnosed with it. And so how do you keep everybody elevated and feeling like not only they matter, they're not alone on an island, and then also support people that are around someone that's just being diagnosed. Everybody wants to help, but they don't know how to help. Mm-hmm. And the patient doesn't know what they need to help. I mean, thank you for offering, but I don't know, could you get me some water?
Right.
You really don't know. And what Kickin'Cancer has done, it's evolved and it continues to evolve with Baron, your leadership and really having those different areas that you focused on and keeping it keeping it alive and real, different from all of the other nonprofits. And there's a lot of great ones out there for cancer. There's a lot, and there's a lot of information. It becomes overwhelming to where you shut it off and just walk away. Sometimes it's too much. But then you can take a deep breath, call Barron up and say, hey, I've got a friend that was just like, what can I do? And you've got so many resources now, locally but also worldwide, that it matters. And it's different from all of the other cancer support groups. They all have a good mission. They all have some areas of support and help. But the way that you've done this, I see smiles on people's faces, and you leave it up to us, but you help pull everybody along to where they feel like, you know what, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
And if I'm not, I can call Barron, and he'll get me in contact with somebody that can help.
Yeah.
It just is so wonderful. It's simple, hot pink, and bright. It's bright hope is what I see with Kicking Cancer.
Yeah.
When we did that very first seminar, I had run into a gentleman from Portland. He'd been a friend of mine for years, and his job was consulting for organizations. He was a consultant. And he consulted for free, and he said, here's how you pull off a seminar. Here's what you got to do. But I'm not going to do it for you.
Right.
So we stayed in touch through email as I began to plan that very first seminar. And he and my sister Brenda were going to be the speakers at that very first seminar. As it got closer, he still hadn't met Brenda, all emails, but he sent me a really touching email, and I kept a copy of it. And he said that I embodied all the good traits of P.T. Barnum.
Yes.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
It is.
And then he said to Brenda, that keep the fight, and if you're having a really bad day, call Barron, he'll talk your leg off.
It's true, though.
Yeah.
You talk off, even if you have tears in your voice or streaming down your cheeks, you're there.
Yeah.
And we all know that. And it just brings a brightness of, I can do this. Even if it's one step today, I can do 2 more steps on the elliptical. I don't want to, but I can.
Yeah.
Call Barron. He'll help you. Call Brenda. Brenda's helping, very helpful.
My husband, Bo, he just last week actually was at one of his clients' house, and she started to cry, and he was like, you know, is everything okay? It's a client of his that's a repeat customer, and so they're close. And she said that her daughter was just diagnosed with cancer, and she's not quite ready to talk about it yet, and not quite sure what to do, where to go, or how to absorb the information. And he said, I am so sorry. I don't have much words, but what I do have is a guy. And he will be able to direct you in the right direction for any questions that you have. And he's the cancer guy, and he will help you. And he gave your information to her because that's what you're known for. You are just so inspiring around cancer and what to do and what direction to go and just your resources.
Well, I remember I got a phone call. It was 2019. It was that first year. And people in the community that know who Larry Jackson is, he's 4th generation with Jackson's Auto Body. He's involved with both the Salem Chamber, the Kaiser Chamber. And I was the new guy on the block, right? I had been going to Chamber for about 6 months. And I get this phone call from Larry Jackson that he had gotten prostate cancer.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to hear that. And I said, why'd you call me? Like, you know everybody. He's like, you're the Kicking Cancer guy. Who else would I call?
Right. Yes.
And I called him back, and I said, hey, Larry, it's Baron Robison. He says, who? I said, the Kicking Cancer guy. Oh. Like, he knew me as a Kicking Cancer guy more than my own name.
Yeah.
You know? And then I get a call from Griff Lindell, who spoke at our honoring evening.
Yeah.
Griff was the dean of business at Corbin University. Griff has done a lot of really amazing things in his life, and he calls to tell me that his wife had gotten cancer. I'm like, I'm sorry, but why'd you call me? It's like, who else would I call?
Yeah.
And I didn't ever think that I would brand myself, but all I want to do is just help. I just want to be a support help.
And that's what you are.
And that's how wonderful ideas come up.
Yes.
Well, the wonderful idea, because we're running close on time, in our timeline, last week I talked about meeting Noah and doing disc golf. I thought, how do I advertise this disc golf event? We were going to have it at Oak Knoll Golf Course, which is west of town. So I went to With Nell and they donated $1,000, and we created a billboard. It was a 20-foot banner with some poles on the end, a really bright pink banner that we put on Highway 22. So for about 8 weeks, as you drove from here to Dallas or the coast, here's this big, huge Kickin' Cancer banner saying we're going to have this event at Oak Knoll. And, you know, I just have these ideas, and then I have friends like Victoria that help me make them happen.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate it.
Thank you for letting me share.
Absolutely.
Always a delight to be with you both.
Thank you. All right, our sponsor for the second half is Marianne McNally. She is a residential real estate specialist with Next Home Realty Connection. So if you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, she's your go-to. Her number is 503-409-4389, and please keep her in your prayers. And we'll be back next week
as the movement continues.
Love it.